Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. This is episode 71, and I'm here with my co-founder. Hey there, Brian.
Hey, Ani.
How are you?
I'm doing great,
Good. How are your travels back from the level 3 Somatic Coach Professional Retreat?
Well, thankfully, my travels were short because we hosted it at a beautiful retreat center very close to our home in around the Capital District of upstate New York.
Yeah, my travels were great too. Thanks for asking. My driver was phenomenal. You did a great job. Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you for driving me home because I was tired. I was ready for a break.
Yeah.
So it's good. Had some good coffee on the way home.
Yeah, it was a nice trip.
The retreat center was really nice.
Amazing.
So today we're talking about some top takeaways from our Somatic Coach Professional Retreat. And I think before we hop into it, we should probably talk a little bit about the placement of the retreat and why the heck it's there and stuff like that.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the retreat is about 2/3 of the way through our level 3 training. And really the retreat marks in a lot of ways a culmination of all of the tools and processes and practices and all those kinds of things that students learn actually all the way from starting at level 1, all the way level 2, all the way up into level 3. Because at the retreat, we do morning practices that are based on our core centering practices. So we get up, we practice together before we go have like a really amazing breakfast together. And then we come back and start to do some work with our level 2 fundamental transformations kind of work. And then we dig into some of the more advanced training that we've done throughout the course of level 3. And so at the retreat, it really gives us an opportunity to be together, be in person, in real life, kind of as the kids say. We can be connected together and really do the practices in real time, in real person, in real community, in real contact. And also have a lot of space after the practices to debrief and talk about and share. And of course, we're having meals together and those kinds of things also. So there's just a lot of time to share and kind of percolate on all the lessons that we're learning. And it's a bit of a page turning too, because after the retreat, we start to then focus more on, let's take these tools and practices out into the world. So let's work on packaging your programs. Let's work on integrating them into what you do. Let's talk about differences between coaching and mentoring and overcome hurdles and competencies
like
and all those kinds of things.
Case studies.
I really like to think about the retreat as really a celebration more than anything else, celebrating the journey that everyone has been on to get to that point. And then to be able to really go through a transformational experience themselves so that they can become the somatic coaches that can really help other people have powerful transformations too.
Yeah, I agree with you about the celebrations. And through the context of, well, at least in the level 3 program, it's like a lot of tools that people are gaining, and we do practice them. We practice them plenty. And then to be together and, like you said, have that space to practice them and put them into the context of a coaching container too. So we're not just practicing the tools, but we're really practicing within the context of a session.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So some of the people that study with us are already coaches, and this is the point where they're like, oh yeah, now I see how it all fits together. Right. And then for the people who are newer to coaching, this is the part where they go, oh, like this is the coaching part where it all starts to click. Everything starts to click at the retreat. And it is a fun celebration. It's fun to have everybody get together. So a lot of times our students have known each other for many months before the retreat. Mm-hmm. And we've had people at the retreat center who are our hosts, our retreat center hosts, be kind of baffled when everybody gets there and they seem like they know each other, because a lot of times at retreats, people don't necessarily know each other when they get to the retreat. And they'll say, do you all know each other? Oh yeah, we're old friends.
Yeah, but it's the first time many of us are meeting in person.
In person, exactly. Yeah, and it's a super fun time.
Yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing. So we just, had the retreat recently, and I thought it might be just a good opportunity to have a conversation about, hey, what were some of the top lessons
Hmm.
that we saw coming not only out of this retreat, but a lot of the retreats that we run through
Hmm.
level three. A lot of the themes and the lessons
Themes. Yeah.
tend to be the same,
Hmm.
a little different nuances
For
because
sure.
obviously there's different people in each retreat. But I thought it might be kind of cool to look inside and look what are the themes and the lessons that we're pulling away
Hmm.
that we thought might be valuable to share with people.
Yeah, I love this. Who do you want to start, or
Sure,
do you want
yeah,
me to
yeah, yeah.
start?
No, it doesn't matter. Do you want to go?
Sure.
Okay, what do you got?
One of the things that I noticed, it was probably in the first hour or so of the retreat, it was really in the beginning, was this idea of working with and being with.
Hmm.
And our students were really thoughtful around wanting to deepen their own practice of being with their clients. And I loved watching that happen because I think that's a unique thing that we teach our students anyway, that there's two things going on when you work with people. There's the kind of what you do, there's the working with, and then there's this who you are being with that affects the transformation and the change. And I loved seeing how excited our students were about that. And then I loved seeing how for each of them they took an intention about what being with they
Yeah.
wanted to kind of work with at the retreat, and watching them deepen that through the course of the few days was great.
Yeah, I agree. That was also a touching point for me where there were intentions made about which parts of the being with kind of matrix that people were working with. And then through the retreat, you'd see people actually embodying those types of things. And then when they're coming back and doing debriefs, whether or not they mentioned that they were actually had an experience with that element, you could hear it coming out from them. And sometimes you said, "Oh, wow, that sounds like that element you're working with."
Yeah,
And they're
they're
like,
like,
"Oh
oh my
my God,
gosh,
you're
I'm
right.
doing it.
I'm doing it."
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that
very
was
cool.
right off the bat. I noticed
Yeah,
that.
that was great. So one of my biggest takeaways, and this is true for actually every one of the Somatic Coach Pro or sensation-based motivation coaching retreats that we've done, is that every single person that goes to the retreat, and by 100%, have some type of major awareness, shift, a breakthrough, and potentially even a transformation.
I would say paradigm shift. That's
Yeah,
one of the ones that comes like
huge paradigm
paradigm
shift. Yeah,
shift.
people have
How we
massive
approach
paradigm
the
shifts,
world and
how
reality.
they see things. Something becomes very clear and apparent to them all of a sudden. It's almost like a dirty window kind of gets washed off and they can see the world in a different way, maybe for the first time. And that happens 100% of the time at the retreat. And I think a lot of that is because of the way that the program is set up on the way to the retreat. And then, of course, the container that the retreat for itself sets up. So, we didn't come up with this little phrase. I think one of our very first cohorts did is that when you work the process works.
Yeah.
And so the other little takeaway is that it's about leaning into the process, that the sensation-based motivation coaching process. When you lean into that process and we let go, and this is another thing that you start to see at this retreat, as our coaches that we're training, they start to let go of trying to be smart, of trying to outthink what's going on with their client, of trying to always have the right answer for their client, of trying to like navigate with their client.
Yes.
But instead, they just settle in and allow the process, the coaching process, to do the work itself. If they just can work the process works every single time. And that's for me, that is just so enriching and endearing and really in a lot of ways feels so amazing to know that something has been created that is so reliable
Yeah.
if you can just do it, if you can just stay with that process, it works every time.
We were actually talking about that in class this week because some of the students were talking about this idea of, we were talking about rates and programs and what do I charge? And some students were talking about this idea of finding my value or owning my value, which is something that we hear out there
Mm.
all the time. And one of the things I was relating is how valuable the process is because the process works every single time. And so one of the ways we can kind of get out of our own way around quote unquote knowing our value, which that totally gets sticky, by the way, with all of our human stuff and the way that we
Hmm.
think and our
Yeah.
conditioning and
Right.
right. So, but when you know that the process works every single time and you lean into trusting the process, that becomes very valuable. And the even the process is valuable, the tools are valuable, but even that predictability of knowing that it works and being able to lean into that, that's valuable too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one that's similar to what you said. And one of the exercises that we do is around asking natural law
Oh
questions.
yeah, yeah.
And it was really fun to watch the students have epiphanies about how it was less important around what specific law they picked and which question they asked, because it was almost like, as long as I ask a natural law question, something good is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
And watching that was so phenomenal because, similar to what you were just saying, the students kind of relaxed into being aware that it was the process that was at play. It was the process of asking natural law based questions that was at play. And it wasn't about them being smart or figuring it out.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
I
love
love
that
that.
too. Yeah, because the question itself is doing the work for you.
Yeah.
Because a natural law based question is based in, well, of course, natural law, and then it carries a certain element or certain kind of frequency along with it,
Yes.
then activates certain things inside a person
Right.
that can't be denied because natural law is true, right? Natural laws are always true. They're the only thing that is true for everyone.
Right.
So when you ask a question based in ultimate truth, it it's very difficult or almost impossible for a person's subconscious to try to create something that's not true
Yeah,
from it, right?
exactly. And as coaches, we're known for asking questions. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And when, as coaches, we ask natural law questions, all of a sudden we know that actually, just like you said, we help our client to align with a vibrational frequency that helps them to be the person who can create the changes that they want to see. And we know that that's true because the question aligns with the natural laws,
Yeah.
and we don't have to figure that out.
Mhm.
It's so, for me as a coach, knowing that is so great because I can just sit back and be witness to and watch the unfolding of the
Yeah,
process
right.
rather than trying to figure some, it's not about me trying to figure anything out so we can get anywhere in particular. Like all the magic unfolds from there. And so as a facilitator at the retreat, watching that experience happen within the students was super gratifying.
Yeah, really amazing. So kind of picking up on that too, about the process. So why does the process work so well? Well, my other takeaway is that words matter.
Oh,
And words
yeah.
really matter. And what we mean by that is that part of what we do when we're teaching a process is that there are certain points in the process where it's very important to use certain words in certain places because of the way, again, that they elicit more honest and truthful and deeper responses from within a person, more specific responses.
responses. Yeah.
And so one of the things that we noticed, I always notice during the retreat, is that someone may ask a question when they're in a coaching dyad, and maybe the exchange won't go as
Yeah.
anticipated.
Yeah.
And they'll say, okay, well, tell me again how you asked that question. I'll go, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
We just need to shift that word a little bit.
Yeah.
So try it this way. And when they just move and it could be the same word in a different place in a sentence,
Yeah.
or it could be one
One word
different
that was,
word in a sentence.
yeah,
Right.
omitted or added.
Exactly.
It's so important.
So
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting. So when you ask the person then to ask the question again with a word in a different place, it creates a completely different response for someone.
Yeah.
So the other big takeaway for me every year is that words do really matter, and that's why it's important to lean into the process, because the process has been cultivated in such a way where the most important words are in the most important spots at the most important times in order to help again facilitate a process of gathering information for a person and also creating a transformation.
So you're talking about the words that were said, and one of my takeaways is how our students were cultivating an elevated capacity to listen
Mm.
for specific certain
Sure.
words,
Yeah. Also that. You're right. Yes.
right?
Yep.
So when they listened to for specific certain words, they were able to put the exact right tool match with that word
Yeah.
to help elicit a major breakthrough for somebody.
Yeah.
That, yeah, it's magical to watch that happen. It is so specific, and yet it's really so easy.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
fun.
that's a great takeaway. So another takeaway that I have from inside is on one of our podcasts somewhere, I'm not sure, we talked about the 3 levels of safety and polyvagal theory.
Yeah, I love that you're
And
bringing this
right,
up. This
so
was
we
a good
have
one.
the first level of safety is social engagement. That's a ventral vagal pathway. The second level of safety is a sympathetic nervous system response, fight or flight. Third level of safety is dorsal vagal complex response. And what we notice is that it really transformation, and especially transformation where you are transforming a limiting belief, a core limiting concept, something that you were taught sometime in your life that made a has a deep hold on someone and it limits their life, that ultimately it's coming back to social engagement and actively and purposely eliciting a ventral vagal response in yourself is one of the most powerful ways to help move a client closer to finding who they truly are and being able to express who they truly are in the world.
I think that a lot of people would talk about what you're describing as kind of like empathy, Brian. I'm not saying that's exactly what you're saying, but I think that might be a kind of a general way people talk about it out there. And one of the things I appreciate about the retreat is empathy actually is a word that comes up quite a bit for our students,
Mhm.
whether they want to be more empathetic or kind of like less empathetic. And the process you're talking about by helping people to understand the ventral vagal stuff really helps them to embody and do this concept that they hear about. I loved watching that happen as well.
Yeah. And I think empathy is really amazing and really important. The one interesting little nuance that I just want to kind of mention about empathy a little bit is
Em-
empathizing, yeah, over empathizing
empathizing.
as a coach in that relationship. It sometimes we can get pulled
Yep.
into whatever it is that our client is dealing with,
Yep.
and that doesn't help anybody. So, but at the same time, if we are completely detached from empathy, then there's not a connection
Yeah.
between. So there's really this masterful way to have practice empathy, but then purposely bringing in ventral vagal engagement or social engagement tools
Yeah.
in order to support the client in sometimes people talk about it in terms of co-regulation, but there's actually things that you can do as a coach to intentionally within yourself not only create co-regulation but project safety through social engagement pathways to the client so that they feel supported and safe and heard as they're moving through their own transformation.
I think part of the difference from more of a beginner coaching program and this is in the beginner coaching program, they tell you things like stay out of your client's stuff.
Mhm.
But this allows, like you said, a really masterful way to not be attached and not be disengaged, which is masterful.
Yeah, yeah. There's like kind of like a fine little
It's,
line or window there.
yeah, it's really an art
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
more than a science,
Mhm.
don't you think?
Yeah. So you have another one?
Yes. Speaking of art,
Yeah.
I love watching the unfolding of the art of container setting.
Mm.
So, how do you set up your session and how do you end your session? And I specifically watched the setting up the session and the evolution of our students being able to do that. And my takeaway is again how important it is to set up your session because it's kind of like you're setting the GPS for where you want to go.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I could set my GPS for New York City, but when I get there, I could be any number of places. Or I could set my GPS for the Gershwin Theater in New York City and I get exactly what I'm looking for. And the setting the container to have a tight container can take some time.
Hmm.
When we were doing sharing, we had some students who and it wasn't just some students, it was just some circumstances where the container setting went really fast. And we had some circumstances where the container setting took some time. But regardless of how much time it took or where they had to go to get there,
Hmm.
setting that tight container, set the GPS like magic for the client to be able to get where they wanted to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that one. I love that one. So just another one that I have a big takeaway too, and something I think is really important and powerful about our program is the whole idea of the muscular layer practices.
Yeah.
So when we are working in a somatic kind of coaching relationship with people, one of the things that means, of course, is that Soma is body-centered coaching. And I think we've talked about this a lot. Some somatic coaches and practitioners, they're just doing body stuff. There's no question or anything like that, right? They're just working with the body solely. and other people, there's just a lot of asking questions and there's not a lot of body engagement. So I really, what I see in our practitioners and our coaches, we saw a lot of this, was there was always a lot of involving the body during the coaching process.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically to work through the resistances to change
Mm-hmm.
that a person would be going through in a change process, right? We talk a lot about any change process at all always includes resistance because that's how our subconscious is programmed and wired. And so it's not about not having resistance. It's about being masterful at navigating the resistance. And what I see is that when you have an understanding of how to work through the muscular layers of resistance, it makes you so much more a stronger coach, a more effective coach, in a lot of ways, a more intuitive coach, a more sensitive coach, and really, at the end of the day, actually a coach that can help someone to discover something more about themselves that they hadn't realized because you're resourcing all of them in that process.
Yeah, we saw breakthroughs that I pretty much guarantee we wouldn't have seen without the muscular layer
Totally,
practices.
totally.
Because you could see throughout the trajectory of where we had the students practice them, the kinds of things that were happening
Yeah,
for themselves within the context of their shares,
cool,
right?
cool. Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's kind of like a predictable part of the process. Is really really neat. Um, okay, I have one
Got
more.
one more? Okay, I have one more too. You go ahead.
Okay, so I think the last takeaway is a kind of a personal takeaway to watch the students be able to absorb the information that we were bringing, which could be seen as incredibly complex. Like it's answering big questions that people have about human nature that could potentially be those big hairy questions that never get answered.
Mhm.
But not only to see how clearly it was articulated from them, but some of the graphics that we've created for the information so that they can listen to it, they can see it, and then they can put it into practice. I was just really excited about that because I think the it's nice to see it on Zoom, but when we see it in person, how the students knowledge, you can just see their eyes like the light bulbs, right? You can
Yeah.
just see the light bulbs going off as they're digesting the information and looking at the models. So that's a little bit of a personal, like, yeah,
Yeah.
high five on that. Um, it was really solid. And we had a number of students say, I've studied this stuff for years and years and years. The way you've described it and the models that you're using to describe it make so much sense. They're crystal clear, practical, and simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So true. So my last takeaway is that lightheartedness matters. And even though we're together doing some pretty deep work, there's laughter throughout the whole retreat.
Yeah.
And we actually had a graduate come back, and one of our associate coaches came back and joined us from last year. And when I was asking her about, oh, so what was the difference in your experience between last year and this year? And she said, well, last year wasn't really a difference, but I remember last year I just laughed so hard
Yeah.
and I was just belly laughing. And this was like on the first day, I think I asked her that. And of course, at the last evening of our retreat together,
We were
we
just
do something
dying.
different with every cohort,
Yeah.
right? We really, really try to choose an activity that is matches the personality of the
Individual
cohort.
to the cohort.
Cohort,
Yeah.
and we did it. We did for you guys listening that were at the retreat, for you graduates that are at the retreat, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we did an activity, and there were
It
what
was so
12 of us,
funny.
13, 14 of
Holy
us
cow.
like doing this together. And
Yeah.
there was so much laughter and so much
Oh, just
joy
tears
and
of laughter,
and
belly
so much
laughs.
and so much like just letting go. It was just
It
wonderful.
was
And
great.
it was just really a beautiful experience and just see all the smiles around the face. So what I'm saying is that there can be right, there's both sides. There's always both sides. It can feel like there's a lot of times a lot of depth in the work, but what I love about our retreats is that there's always like a hearty dose, an equal dose of lightheartedness
Yeah.
and joy and just effervescence as a part of the retreats too. And that's another just something I love so much about them, and another big look from what happens inside of those retreats.
Yeah. We have people routinely tell us they laugh more at the retreat than they have all year, things
Yeah,
like that. I love that. I think for me too.
yeah,
Super fun.
yeah. It's really great, really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to reminisce a little bit and highlight. We always do our debriefs afterward, but this was kind of fun to share some of
Mhm.
the things that we see. behind the curtain.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if listening and you want more information and you're kind of soaking this up and like, this sounds really cool, I want to know more about that, just reach out to us at info@somaticcoachingacademy.com. Right now we're enrolling for level 2 and level 3. So Somatic Coach Pro. And if there's something you want to just jump in, then why hesitate? Give us a call.
Yeah, come to our info sessions because they're run by a grad. So you get to ask all those questions about what is it actually like and get a little peek behind the curtain yourself until you're in the program and you actually understand. Yeah. So thanks for joining us for this episode. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.